back to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in from wherever and however you are. Like, subscribe, share, tell everyone you know that you heard the best episode of the Startup Junkies podcast today. My name is Caleb. I am a Startup Junkie and co-host. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Ameriine and Grace Gill. How are we doing?
We're doing great.
Yep.
We got a new offensive coordinator. Dan Enos is coming back.
It's the return of Enos.
Go Hogs.
Go Hogs. Woo Pig. And we are also excited to be joined by our friend, fellow economic developer, fellow podcaster, James Bell, who is the VP of Economic Development at the Greater Bentonville Area Chamber of Commerce. How's it going, James?
Great. Thank you all for having me.
Yeah.
Been looking forward to this.
We will at some point talk about Memphis barbecue, Texas barbecue, and Kansas City barbecue. But to start with, give us your origin story.
Okay.
And you can interweave barbecue into that if you need to.
Sure. I'm going to start by saying two of those are not barbecue.
Yeah, I knew you were going to go there. So we just alienated a good part of our audience.
We still love you. The others are meat with barbecue sauce on them.
Got it.
Very good. My story. It's like every good entrepreneur. It's a winding story. You've seen the picture of the straight line and the winding road. Mine's definitely a winding road. I don't think I ever took a path that the end of the path was where I thought I was going. But I grew up in Central Arkansas, moved all over the country, went to New Orleans, Nashville, Chicago, Denver, Memphis, stuck around Memphis a little longer than the other places, and then landed here in Bentonville 2 years ago, quite intentionally with my family, and we are never leaving. From an industry perspective, let me go back to personal perspective. I'm a husband, father, dad of a 2.5-year-old rambunctious boy, and big fan of the Razorbacks, and just a fan of enjoying life. From a business perspective, my industry background is medical devices and health tech, where I spent, I'll stop counting at 20 years in companies ranging from startups to the Global 200 in roles ranging from service facing to sales and sales management, and of course led as a CEO for some startups.
And you were a veteran as well, right? 2 different services.
I left that out. Yeah, I spent 8 years in the Navy Reserve, was out for quite a bit, and then joined the Army National Guard for 3 years.
Awesome.
How does that translate? How does that translate your time in service to the battlefield of entrepreneurship?
Wow. You can tell everybody what to do and they're not going to listen to you in the battlefield of entrepreneurship. So in that area, it doesn't necessarily translate. No, there are a lot of leadership skills you learn in the military, and that obviously can be very helpful. Some of the things I learned in the military, I just learned early in life, which is get up and do stuff and work and just get it done. In some ways, military life is you feel like you know what's coming, but many times it's not what's coming right. It's a little bit chaotic. I would say that definitely translates to startups, but really it's hurry up and get stuff done. If that makes sense.
And being able to deal with ambiguity.
Yeah.
A lot of people have this view of military life that everything's all sorted out and you're just waiting for orders. And a lot of times it's like, that's the objective figured out. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. And whatever you think you know right now is going to change 10 times before you get there.
And it's all going to change.
And heaven forbid you're being graded on it in some way because they'll make it change. Right. And then fail you for it.
Exactly. Exactly. What do you enjoy about working at the chamber? I mean, with all those different things you've done as startup CEO and working in the industry and working in the startup scene, what are you enjoying most about the chamber these days?
What I enjoy most about the chamber is that is my role in economic development.
Yeah.
I get to do my tiny part to help build this amazing place. And it's very personal for me because we moved here to be here forever. So I get to help build a place where my son could grow up and decide maybe he's leaving, but know that he'll probably come back.
Sure.
Or we're creating opportunities for him that I didn't have growing up. and perhaps he'll decide he'll never leave because this is such an amazing place to be. So I love that. Also love that I get to help people do the things that they're most passionate about. I get to help them build their businesses or decide whether they should be here in Bentonville and Northwest Arkansas, and then help the established businesses that are here build and grow, and startups, launch their business and grow.
Why should people around the world, around the country, be excited about the prospect of maybe moving their business or starting a business in Bentonville and Northwest Arkansas?
For me, this one's pretty easy. What's the number one thing you need? Customers. Well, we have plenty of those. We have the world's largest business. We have 2 other Fortune 500s here. We have more than 1,400 vendors to the world's largest business surrounding them. About 400 of the Fortune 500 have a presence here. And in Bentonville in particular, you think about all these large businesses, and still 98+% of our businesses have 100 employees or fewer. And then there's this robust entrepreneurial ecosystem and startup community that has grown up around it. There are some sectors that if you're directly in those sectors, you would be crazy not to be here. But if you look at that breadth of businesses, starting from the standpoint of potential customers to just the opportunity to learn from experts and access an amazing workforce, it's all here. We can talk about verticals if you want as well.
I think Northwest Arkansas Council should sponsor this episode.
Absolutely.
That sounds good.
Let's get Nelson to send us a check.
I'm also interested, and this is kind of fresh on my mind because I was working on kind of like a little article piece for a magazine. Jeff and I both had written some thought pieces around this. One I just did was on healthcare, and just kind of like looking at Northwest Arkansas, coming from your background in medical devices in Memphis, which is kind of a good place for that. When somebody's looking at the 2 regions, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go to Memphis because there's this ecosystem for it here. The thought and intentionality and then investment being put into creating a health-related ecosystem in Northwest Arkansas, all of those pieces are starting. If you would have said a few years ago, it's like, oh gosh, that'd be 100 year, 50, be a long time before we actually like marched that direction. But with the amount of investment and effort and kind of concerted efforts around that, what do you think Northwest Arkansas is going to look like from a healthcare perspective as far as that ecosystem goes?
That is a great question. Here's my first crazy statement of the day. I believe that 30 or 40 or 50 years from now, people will write about what happened in healthcare in Northwest Arkansas in the same way they write about retail today. So I'll start there. And then let's look back historically at what brought us to this point where we decided to do something about it. And that point is only a few years ago. In 2018, the Northwest Arkansas Council released its report on healthcare in Northwest Arkansas. And it was generally believed before that report that healthcare was okay, that we didn't have enough specialists, and we didn't have enough residencies. And for folks who may not be familiar with how residencies work for doctors, when they're done with med school, they go somewhere to do their residency, and where they are is usually where they stay. So we had kind of a trifecta there and more that equated to not having enough of the good enough, or great healthcare. And then add to that, some of our organizations were sending their employees to places like Cleveland Clinic and Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic for healthcare. And so $1 billion of healthcare was leaving this place.
A year, from what I understood.
Yes, $1 billion a year of healthcare was going somewhere else. And so now, I wasn't sitting in the room that day when this was presented, or when folks went, well, here's what we're going to do, but here's what I sort of believe happened.
We thought you gave the game plan to Alice Walton before she laid it out.
I don't think so. I wasn't even here.
Well, I don't know, but you could have fed it to her from Memphis, right?
Right. Well, I my pay grade's not high enough to
understand.
Persuade Alice.
Understand.
Walton. So, I wasn't there that day, but here's sort of a sense of the way people think here. And you have experienced it, and I've sat in conversations and have experienced it, where here's what I think happened. Folks got the report, they heard the presentation and went, $1 billion a year leaves here. Great. We're going to have $1 billion surplus. And I believe somewhere along that way, that number is now turned into $2 billion. And so sort of separate from that, if you look at what's happening here, sort of separate from that is Walmart standing up thousands of clinics across the country to deliver affordable, accessible healthcare. I don't want to speak for them. This is the sense that I get is but they're doing this. And when you think about Walmart being within 10 miles of 90-something% of the population of the country, and in a lot of rural areas in particular, where folks don't have that kind of access to healthcare, they can finally have access to affordable, convenient healthcare services they didn't have before. And it's not just primary care; it's things like optometry and pharmacy that they already provide, but it's also behavioral health. It's basic radiology services, it's nutrition, and so on.
And they're going to try to tailor. It's not going to be cookie cutter where it's the same everywhere. They'll tailor it to what the demographic or local population needs, right?
Yeah. And again, I'm not speaking for them and don't know their whole plan, but I'm imagining.
I was. I just had a call with Doug McMillan, and that's what he said. So.
Exactly.
I'm totally kidding. Please don't get mad at me. It was a joke.
Right. Well, I'm imagining in my head, we're all shopping with our Walmart app, right? If you're in the store, I pick up my app. If there's not something there, I immediately order it, and it's on my doorstep sometimes that afternoon. But imagine a world where you go to your primary care physician at Walmart, and they're like, "Hey, James, you're a little chubby. Here than you should be, or than I want to be."
Yeah, Mountain Dew's in your cart. You want to do a blood pressure check?
Right. Imagine if they say, I don't know, you want to go see the nutritionist or the nutritional specialist, and we'll throw that in. And you mind if we give you some little nudges along the way? Hey, I see you're buying that. Why don't you buy this instead?
Yeah, don't buy the little Debbie's. Go over there to the Blueberry Island.
Yeah. Imagine a world where Walmart could actually affect a behavioral change for people that's long lasting. I think that's pretty cool. I'm really excited to see where they go with this.
Well, it's such a direct tie to social determinants of health.
Absolutely.
And medical spend throughout life. So it's a really good point.
It's a great way to be healthy before you start, so you don't need a big bloated healthcare system.
Exactly.
But then if you look at what Alice Walton's doing with the Whole Health Institute to make people healthy from the start, again, hopefully the same result. And we're not talking about osteopathic health. We're talking about whole body, whole life, whole everything health, spiritual, physical, and so on. And then, they've had the announcement of 80 new residencies for Washington Regional.
Amazing.
So there's 80 new doctors that can come to our region every cycle and hopefully stay here. You add to that the announcement of the medical school, which they're about to turn dirt on, which is, I believe it's the first one in the world focused on whole health.
Yeah.
Which
so
is
cool.
Incredible. And then there was something else in my mind that I just
with
forgot.
The Cleveland Clinic. I mean,
yes, that's the one I'm looking for.
See, I that's what you're thinking.
Yeah. So then Washington Regional and the Alice Walton Foundation and Whole Health Institute announced in partnership with the Cleveland Clinic they're going to build a transformational healthcare system.
Amazing.
I can't wait to see what all that means. But what I do know from my experiences that all this has happened transpired in the past 5 years.
Yep.
I can't imagine it happening anywhere else in 30 or 40 or 50 years. And I think that says a lot about this place and how people think here.
And then you couple that with also from an entrepreneurial, innovative perspective too. You've got the large benefactors that are turning dirt on like a massive, medical school, but you also have like this year, if you'll dabble in healthcare, and then you've got the FemHealth founders that are working to, bring up, female health entrepreneurs, and then the sprints that the U of A is doing with health tech. I mean, there's this whole multifaceted, multi-tiered approach from like here to here, and all kind of coalesces, and it's kind of seems like it's
completely complementary with all the stuff they're talking about doing as it relates to the outdoor recreation and all the opportunities you have to live a healthier lifestyle by getting out on the soft surface trails, the Greenhouse Outdoor Recreation Program that's run through the U of A. I mean, all these things are tied together.
They are, and it's very intentional, right? There's one that you may not know about. Are you familiar with Symbiosis?
Absolutely.
That's a VC firm spun out of a local family office that is focused on biotech, and they've done I hope I get this right, roughly 30 investments before they were even spun out of that office. And so they're deeply focused on recruiting and investing in biotech companies here. And so you add this whole other layer and think about things like the future, which is cell and gene therapy and so on. And the amount of things that's going to happen here in that space is mind-blowing and almost unimaginable.
So it's a good time to be here.
Yeah. So in summary, Northwest Arkansas is going to be one of the healthiest places in the world.
You're darn right.
All right. No, that's a recruiting tool.
Right. Well, and we can do it, as you said, Jeff, right? When you start as y'all said, when you start layering in the outdoors and what's happening there, it's all very much part of the same puzzle.
So obviously we have this really robust business ecosystem, and because of the retail and health now as well. But what are the other reasons that make this area so special? You say you don't ever want to leave.
Right.
So what is it that makes it that way? And for other people who are coming in and not just accessing these resources and then leaving, but staying.
Aside from Wright's Barbecue.
Yeah, aside from Wright's Barbecue.
Which we know you love.
And the other amazing barbecue
all roads
places
lead back to barbecue.
Yes. all roads.
Speaking of health.
All roads do. Yeah, see, that's why I need to be in a healthy place, because barbecue. Well, first of all, this is a place where you can live the life that you deserve.
Wow, that's pretty great. That's quotable.
Yeah. You can.
Is that the tagline? Live the life that you deserve. If not, that needs to be.
I use that on the Bentonville Beacon podcast, closing it out.
I like it.
Where you can live the life you deserve.
We're going to totally steal that.
Yeah, no, please do.
In fact, we already have it. Make a note of that.
Yeah, and so. You really can. You can live the life you deserve. It's a place where you can come and live and work and play, but everybody says that, so it's kind of noise, right? But then when you look around here, and if you're a mountain biker, I don't know why you would be anywhere else but the mountain biking capital of the world, and the home of the U.S. national mountain bike team,
or
right?
a trail runner, same thing.
Same thing. If you do gravel, we're the gravel infrastructure here is, well, first it was already in place.
You like kayaking?
Roads,
we got a national river.
Yeah,
right?
There's a national river. You have everything you want to do outdoors except for ocean and snow, except for our 9 inches a year of snow, 9.2 inches a year. So economic developers have all kinds of weird stats in their head, but that we get. And so you have everything outdoors. You have this amazing place where people are sort of pulling and working together and moving in the same direction. You can go stand in the square in Fayetteville, stand in the square in Bentonville, in Rogers, in Springdale. You can feel the energy of the place.
It's an evolving music and art scene as well, right? I mean, so there's those cultural aspects where you can really experience some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even touched art. Before I came here, I was really an art novice. Now I'm an art novice plus. But it's really cool to know that my son's growing up in a place where he can access art, and he can do it at any time, and he can do it for free, right? I mean, the first time we went to Crystal Bridges, I looked at my wife about 3:00 in the afternoon or 2:00 in the afternoon on a Sunday. Went, hey, want to go to Crystal Bridges today? Okay. So we loaded up the car an hour later, and me and our son and my mother-in-law and father-in-law, we went to Crystal Bridges. And we only spent an hour and a half there. And then we went out and had dinner, and we went home, and all in, we were in less than $50. And by the way, Crystal Bridges was free. Mm-hmm. And that is a world-class art museum.
It is amazing.
Right?
I mean, it's over $1 billion investment. And plus from the Walton family and from Alice. And it's amazing. And it's being expanded as well.
By 50%. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And so we can go back anytime. So it's okay.
Yeah. Yep.
If you go out on the trails, you see art. If you go into town, you see art. Everywhere you go, behind our office at the Momentary, there's another art museum. And it's everywhere. And for me, I've started appreciating art and the way it should be appreciated. So you're right. The art, culture, music, the music scene continues to build here. I can't think of the name of the group. Oh boy, it's killing me. One of the groups that helped build the music scene in Austin is planning a chapter here. Black Fret is planning a chapter in Bentonville. And
they're an AC/DC cover band. Is that right?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you can tell how much I know about music.
Yeah.
I stopped listening to music in about 78.
Well,
anything new anyway.
I think it's really cool that one of their next chapters after Bentonville is Nashville.
Wow. So we beat Nashville. At
we beat Nashville, right?
That's nice.
You've got the House of Songs.
Yeah,
right.
Amazing. Which was kind of imported from Austin, right?
Again, imported from Austin, which invites writers to come here and write music and hone their craft and collaborate. But they've recently opened up another outpost, and it's in New York City.
So talking
Austin,
about, we got all these pieces that are coming together, and we're obviously sold on it. I mean, we drink the Kool-Aid and the bourbon and then eat the barbecue, right? We're sold on it. But how many people per day are moving into Bentonville or into Northwest Arkansas in general? What's the latest stat on that?
That's a great question. The stat ranges somewhere from 30 to 32.
Amazing. And they're projecting we're going to go from a little less than 600,000 as a metropolitan service area to what?
North of 1 million by 2035.
Amazing. Amazing. But we're not going to become Austin, which is like living in LA where you've got terrible traffic and all that stuff. I mean, why would anybody choose Austin when they can come here?
If I hear one more person say we're going to be the next Austin or the next anywhere else, here's what we're going to be. We're going to be the next best version of Northwest Arkansas, the next best version of Bentonville,
our own identity, right?
Version of Fayetteville. Because
love it.
If we're not, then we have to accept two things. Number one, all the problems everybody else has. And number two, that we're second, period. We can never be better than second if we're going to be somebody else. So let's create our own problems, and we surely will. But we're building this direction and hopefully towards sustainable growth. That's our goal. We've got some challenges, right? But
everybody does.
Everybody does.
But let's talk about the good stuff. How badass is the Ledger? Talk about the Ledger.
By the way, that event you had last night was fantastic there. The Ledger is awesome. It's the world's first bikeable building, right? It's 230,000, I think, square feet, 235.
And you can ride your bike to your office.
You can ride your bike to your office from the ground floor up to the 6th floor. The bike path around it going up the building and the switchbacks is phenomenal. I haven't ridden it yet. I can't wait to. It's 3/4 of a mile from the base to the top, which incidentally is also the distance of the Ledger from Crystal Bridges.
Wow. So if you're a numerologist, there's something going on there.
Yeah, there's something going on there. I don't know if that was on purpose.
But did that on purpose. They always do.
And one block down, you can go to the Treehouse, which is Black Apple Hard Cider. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
shameless plug.
Excellent plug. Yeah. Well, the Ledger, everything about the Ledger is unbelievably intentional. Every little aspect of it. I don't know if you've had the chance to have Josh Kyles on your show, but you definitely should.
We'll put him on a developer
list. Yeah, I had him and Mary Best, who's their, I hope I don't get her title wrong, operations director on the Bentonville Beacon.
Yeah.
About right before they opened the building. And it was a fascinating conversation. Never thought I'd have a conversation for 40 plus minutes about a building. But that's exactly
unique,
what we did.
Right? Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else like it anywhere, which is amazing.
I mean, you take even like the art in that building, right? Yeah. That building is a work of art. Yeah. Then every conference room has the 30 or so conference rooms that you can go swipe a credit card to get into, are decorated by a local artist and named after that artist.
How cool.
Yeah. And then to go further, those bugs that you see everywhere that are carrying the jewels, they imported these bug mosaics from a guy from a place in Germany that were made just customized for the Ledger. They had to figure out a way to embed them in concrete in a way that wouldn't damage them and a way that would be sustainable. And then the story behind them they're all these Ozark critters. And they're carrying these jewels. So they're these.
Have they got ticks?
Jewels.
Yeah. I don't know if there's
ticks and copperheads. Were there ticks? I don't know. I don't remember seeing a tick, but there should be one. Yeah. But yeah, they're all like.
It's amazing.
Every day we walk by bugs and we don't see them, right? We underappreciate them.
It's just differentiated and spectacular. Exactly. The best part of it is future home of Fuel Accelerator, right?
Yeah, it's cool.
Nice queuing out of there.
Yeah.
Plant game there is really strong too. Admire all
the plant game is strong.
Plants.
The tree they brought into the reception area, that's phenomenal.
This whole picture would be a lot better if you could just get excited about it.
Yeah, right. If only. Well, Specialized thought it was so cool that they placed their third experienced center in the world there.
That's amazing.
So
it's amazing. Specialized cycling.
Yeah, Specialized cycling. That's
which
right.
is, and we are the mountain cycling capital of the world.
Yeah,
and the home of the cyclocross world championship.
And an interesting anecdote from tying in the ledger last night in the event and like outdoor rec. There was an older gentleman that I met last night at the event.
Was he like 60 or something?
He's like 50, 45, 50. No, I'm kidding.
You met Jeff for the first time?
You're talking about Brett then.
No, he looks like Santa Claus, so that's what I said. But he moved here from LA last year, a few months ago. But he traveled here frequently to bike, do outdoor stuff. They specifically came back and forth just to do outdoor activities. This was his like vacation location. And then he got the opportunity to where things kind of freed up for him. So he moved to Northwest Arkansas, and now he's starting some blockchain, like he's getting into entrepreneurship, starting kind of a blockchain dev business in Bentonville. And he's there because he just enjoyed riding the trails there.
And this is such a normal story here.
Yeah, it is.
Right. This is.
It's almost like you can save money and live better here.
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah.
Never heard that. I think we should trademark that. Don't
Right. Yeah. Cost of living is below the national average. Despite what some folks locally may believe, our median housing prices are dead on the national average, or very close to it. It's a little pricey for this area. Right. But it's not pricey for versus the rest of the country. It's quite reasonable.
It's amazing. We're sold on it. We're sold on it. It's so cool. And as you look at what's coming, you mentioned about healthcare, the fact that we think we'll be having conversations about remember when, and this became a kind of an epicenter for the whole intersection between living better and healthcare services. What else has got you excited as you think about the future?
Anything mobility.
So you're talking advanced mobility, aircraft,
anything
future
from a
transportation.
Bike. Yeah, let's go backwards. Let's go to an electric unicycle. Everything from an electric unicycle to the other end of the...
Can you ride an electric unicycle? Because we'll have a special episode.
I've never ridden
Heelys, like the little shoes with the wheels in them.
Oh, I guess you could do those, right. Anything that gets people around that's not a car.
Yeah.
So that they can, get around town and just get around life. But anything from micro-mobility to the other end of the spectrum, I'm going to go as far as to say potentially there's stuff space related. But we'll back up we'll back up to flying cars and air taxis and then everything in between. Think drones and every type of powered vehicle you can imagine, our electric vehicle.
So should we announce here that Tom and Stuart are going to partner with Elon Musk and have a SpaceX spaceport here?
No.
Okay, you heard it here first. That's probably not happening.
If you've read the Future Mobility Report from the state of Arkansas, there is mention of a spaceport in it. I can't imagine launching any rockets around here with our topography, but who knows? I've got some opinions about that too. But
sure.
I mean, look, the big, hairy, audacious goal with space is: can you move rockets around from one place to the other and do it in a clean way, in a low cost way, and also move big payloads? Think goods. Is there anybody around here who might be interested in that?
You can see that, right?
I can imagine, right, that becoming the way we can get trucks off the roads. Now, that's way out there.
Sure.
But it could happen someday.
Well, you know what? And to your point, and this is a Northwest Arkansas, not Bentonville specific story, but all roads in hypersonic engines and transportation lead through one company, which is a spin out of the U of A, and that's Ozark Integrated Circuits.
Oh, yeah.
They've got the harsh environment electronics that will allow you to control those engines that are going to go at such high speed.
That's right.
And so it's interesting. We've got this sort of box of tools that make some of what you say in a visionary way a real possibility.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to put it. My favorite types of businesses are the ones that are the box of tools. It's the stuff that makes other stuff work.
Right.
I think it's all great and well that we have an electric vehicle maker. I would also like to have everything that makes every electric vehicle work. That's the business I want to be in.
Yeah.
What's the special software or the
chips and the software
chips
and the
stuff
systems
that makes stuff work. That's where the business is, right?
Very exciting.
And it seems like it's been kind of moonshot after moonshot. And, however many years ago, somebody said Northwest Arkansas is going to be the mountain biking capital of the world.
Yeah.
And people were like, huh. And then it is. And then it's like, Northwest Arkansas is going to be a healthcare destination. Huh. And it's like, oh, wait.
We're headed that
And
way.
now it's like, we're going to be, this mobility center. It's like, now we're at the phase. And so the next phase of that is like, oh. So,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already getting to see the world's toys every other year, right? The Up Summit comes here, goes back and forth between here and Dallas. This year they had their community-facing day for the first time.
Yep,
that was awesome.
Well, let's draw a contrast. Not to throw shade on other places that maybe didn't think this through, but imagine if the Ford family, a Ford Motor Company in the 1950s, has said, we got this crystal ball, and there's going to be international competition on automobiles. And we better diversify the economy of Detroit, or else we're going to have population loss and poverty, and we're going to kind of have our backside handed to us. The thing that's really interesting that the third generation Waltons in particular did with the second generation was to say, retail is great. We're going to continue to make it stronger and better. Supply chain is great, the food and beverage stuff. But what else can we build here that gives us a diversity of economy so that we don't become the Detroit of the 1970s, 80s, and 90s? Now, Detroit's trying to reinvent themselves. But man, it's such a great story that we're bringing other potential clusters and pillars of this economy so that we're not completely relying on just one big sector like they were in Detroit.
Yeah. And these all help us live our lives better.
Yeah.
I mean, we can tie this whole mobility thing to the healthcare thing, right?
Exactly.
If we're driving around in cleaner vehicles, obviously producing less pollution, especially in micromobility. But if you want to get out, well, you can kind of do it now. If you want to go out in the Ozarks and ride your mountain bike, even today, you can go to Thaden Field, our municipal airport in Bentonville, and hop on a helicopter and ride out to the Ozarks, get dropped off to ride your bike and ride home. There's some guys who own some airstrips around this part of the country who, imagine, I don't know, being able to fly out to somewhere, land on a grass airstrip, hop out with your bike and go ride, and maybe you can get over to the Buffalo River and kayak a little bit and then go home. It makes life so much easier.
Yeah.
And then if you think, go further, I mean, if you think about this larger region over to Tulsa, maybe over to Oklahoma City, up to Kansas City and around over to Springfield and Joplin, there are businesses that have parts of their businesses in these different places. You could hop on an air taxi and go between these different places instead of having to drive and burn up a bunch of hours and so on. There's just so many amazing things that could happen.
I'm ready
to help you live your life
for
better.
The autonomous personal Jetson type of air mobility, right? Where I'm getting to the point where I'm old enough and too decrepit to go out and finalize private pilot's license, and probably couldn't get insured if I did. But I want to get in the Jetson mobile and just say I want to go here, and then take a snooze, and then you show up there, right?
It's really not that far away. One of the aircraft that was at the Up Summit Community Day last June, I believe it was Wisk that had theirs, and that's exactly what you would do. You get in and tell it where you're going, much like you would tell Waze or wherever, and except in this case, you didn't have to do anything. It just takes you.
So cool.
Very cool.
Should we land the plane or the Jetson mobile?
Well, yeah, first question, or before we land the plane, though, is back to how we led into the podcast.
Yeah.
What's your favorite kind of barbecue? What part of the pig or cow? He's going to tell you cow is not barbecue.
Cow is not barbecue.
It's got to be pork.
I'm sure. Well, there are I think 3
beef brisket.
I'll call them governing bodies for barbecue competitions. That's Memphis and May. The split off from Memphis and May, which is the Memphis Barbecue Network, and then there's KCBS, the Kansas City Barbecue Society, I'm going to get their certification too. I have a Memphis and May certification. And really, they're kind of the same. It's just that one is Memphis and May, as I understand the difference between them, is Memphis and May because I only judge one competition. It's the World Championship, because why would you judge anything else? And now I can't go to the others because I'm just not going to feel like, right? So, but at Memphis and May then, because, it's kind of like getting into the Boston Marathon. You don't just get into the Boston Marathon, right? And so everybody starts at a 10, and then you lose points. And I believe KCBS, you added up the other way. Sorry, KCBS, if I'm wrong. Find me, correct me, and give me a free class. But clearly Memphis barbecue is the best, and pork is the only meat that's in the definition, and only certain parts of the pork. Pig's feet and snouts and stuff don't count toward barbecue. But oh my God, I love ribs. I love pulled pork.
And no vinegar.
No.
So you're not a Carolina guy.
I'm not a Carolina guy.
And you don't like the dinosaur bones in Texas and all that stuff you get around?
I like this stuff,
but it's Texas. Not barbecue.
But I like to eat it, but it's not the same. I like a little sweet heat. I love my dry rub. I'll take some wet rub or some wet sauce too.
Can you do it any other way other than slow and low?
No. Why would you do that?
So you can't put it in like a flash fryer, right? It's got to be 12, 16 hours.
Ooh. Well, this is interesting. So this is something they would do in Texas. They probably would cook it slow and low, and then at the state fair, they would add a little batter to it, throw it in the deep fryer.
Well, everything is better fried, right?
But that's true.
It's true.
This might be something.
And deep fried, it's even better than that, right?
Yeah, this might be something. I'm willing to try it.
I think we now understand more about barbecue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So our land the plane question is, James, if you have the ability to go back in time, whether that be before you decided to move to Northwest Arkansas, before you started your entrepreneurial career, going back in time with all the accumulated knowledge that you have now, what advice would you give yourself?
Let's just go back to 20, man. I'd start off, don't be an idiot. Anybody who doesn't give themselves that advice, though, is not being honest. And so at 20, and so in that, how old are you now?
Yeah.
Give yourself a few years.
You'll look back. Perfect. Right. Thank you.
So that's cheating to say that one. I think the advice I would give myself, say at 20, would be, hey, dude, you're about to go through a roller coaster ride. You're going to have some really pleasant experiences, some super unpleasant experiences. Some of those pleasant experiences later are going to it'll turn out they were actually unpleasant. They're unpleasant later, and the same way for and vice versa, right? But that no matter what accolades and praises and awards and stuff that you get along the way, those aren't actually the important thing. The numbers that say you were super productive at this and great at this don't actually mean anything if you aren't thinking about, if you're not close to the people around you.
Yeah.
It's actually the people around you that you surround yourself with and you develop relationships with and that you get to know, and helping them be successful that actually matters. So, this other stuff is a measure of not even your success. It's a measure of what somebody thinks that you did. And you may not have done it quite that well. And the other, everybody has an internal measure of success. So I don't even aspire anymore to help people be successful. What I aspire to help people do is to pursue the things that they are most passionate about, because they're going to define their success anyway. And if I try to help them be successful, I'm already by default characterizing what success looks like for them. So I'll let them do that. So the thing I would like to tell my 20-year-old self is just help other people pursue their passions, the things that they're most deeply passionate about, which is what I feel like I get to do today.
Awesome. What's the best way for our listeners to find out more about the Greater Bentonville Chamber or the Beacon Podcast?
Yeah, well, if you want to learn about the chamber, it's greaterbentonville.com. Do check out also, though, Bentonville Economic Development.com. And if you click the podcast link there, you'll encounter the Bentonville Beacon podcast. We're about 50-ish, I think we just crossed the 50 episode mark. We're Fantastic. Way behind this podcast by a few hundred, I guess. So we'll triple up each week. That's not happening. It's a weekly podcast. We occasionally drop some extra episodes in there. Jeff was on not too long ago. Matthew's colleague Matthew Ward was on not too long ago.
We had big fun. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on. Yeah,
that's great. Ecosystem builders, entrepreneurs, chambers of commerce, mayors. If you're interested in taking your economic future into your own hands, we've got a book that can help you. Creating Startup Junkies, Building Sustainable Venture Ecosystems in Unexpected Places is the guide. It's a little bit inspiration. It's a little bit toolkit. What it will allow you to do is take your economic future into your own hands and build a sustainable small business, innovation, and entrepreneurial ecosystem in your backyard. If you'd like to hear more, check out creatingstartupjunkies.com. The Startup Junkie podcast reaches over 100 countries and has had over 100,000 downloads. If you're interested in reaching some of the most motivated and engaged innovators and entrepreneurs on a worldwide basis, give us a shout.